With Season 1 about to go live in a few hours in NA and a bit later on in EU, what is left now is to give out the last few remaining tips and helpful tweaks of what you are going to be doing in Week 1. Just in case you're about to do the wrong thing, you're about to waste some time to spend more gold that you had to, or to ruin the chance of getting some better gear. For today we have the recaps of the reminders of the useful things you should keep an eye out on for the release of the season coming out today or in the next few hours. We are starting, of course, with thing number 1, which has to be the delves. Because the delves will be the best gearing solution for Week 1. You should already have been right now around 11 to 12 keys, without even considering the renown keys you can get, and at the beginning of this new reset you should go all the way up to 17 to 18 keys. This means 17 to 18 603 item level pieces, so definitely beats out whatever amounts of gear you could get from Mythic 0 and even from Heroic Raiding. Now, what is the reminder about the delve system? The reminder of the delve system is that you do not want to run a Bountiful Delve at a lower tier, because even if you do not use your key, even if you enter that delve with no intention of spending your restored coffer key, the bountiful status on that delve will go away for the rest of the daily lockout. That's because, in case you don't know, there are only going to be 4 active delves every day, which will rotate on a daily lockout. So there are 4 zones, 1 Bountiful Delve per zone every day. And because this reset will start with Delve Tier 3 as our highest, it means before we want to do a Bountiful Delve for all of our keys, we have to do a Tier 4, and then a Tier 5, and then a Tier 6, and then a Tier 7 on all of your characters. Those are the delves you don't want to do if they are bountiful, because if you enter during a Tier 4 or a Tier 5, if you enter a Bountiful Delve without using a key, you will still waste that Bountiful Delve for the day. So that is the first tip, the first reminder: don't waste the possibility of 1 603 piece of gear by entering a Bountiful Delve before you actually made it to Tier 8 of the delves. Second tip, perhaps we are a bit late, perhaps we should have mentioned it a few days ago, is the PvP gear. There has been one addition in this expansion, the extra socket item for PvP gear, the Vicious Jeweler's setting. Now the good news, especially for those who have money, is that this requires you to have a Vicious Bloodstone, which you would have to buy with Honor otherwise, but it can also be sold on the auction house, so you can just straight up buy that bloodstone on the auction house. However, to actually buy the item itself from the vendor, it will cost you almost 10,000 honor per piece. The reason why this is useful, because in this week practically the conquest gear will be the same level as the delve gear. It will be 603 upgradable all the way up to 619. Except this 619 gear from PvP will be able to have an extra socket. So of particular importance, of course, are less impactful pieces like the bracers and like the belt, which will be able to have a socket this season. So if you kept up with your honor in this last few days and you have 12,000 or so, by the beginning of this season you would be able to enter a few of the rated PvP events, but even the epic BGs, even the new battleground blitz or the brawl, to earn some conquest, to quickly buy a PvP piece of gear with conquest and then slap a socket on it. What gives this system particular value is because, of course, you can target your gear. We just mentioned how good the delve system will be for gear. Sure, but the delves are RNG. You don't actually get to control what item will be at the end of a bountiful delve, so you might be getting 3, 4 or 5 copies of the same boots over 4 to 5 different delves, whereas with a vendor you can just pick and choose the item you want. And even better if the pick and choose item you want is one of the ones where you can put a socket on it. That's why, especially if you had not much else to do, running PvP to stockpile some of the honor needed to buy these socket items to then do a few battlegrounds, a few PvP arenas, etc, etc at the beginning of the season to get just enough conquest to buy a couple of these items. There has also been an increase in conquest at the beginning of the season. Now it's up to 1600 on week 1 of the season, meaning you can already buy, for example, a couple of items like we mentioned, the socket ones, the bracers and the belts can be bought both on week 1. And the other good thing, of course, is the fact that the PvP gear doesn't actually require crests to be upgraded. So that's also another bonus for this PvP gear on the early levels of your item level. Of course, later on, if you want to do PvE content, if you want to do raids and Mythic Plus, these items will be outdated. But early on, in these first couple of weeks, this can also be a bargain. Talking about min-maxing, we have another thing you might keep an eye out on, even if you dislike PvP. Okay, sure, maybe you don't want to grind on, or maybe you don't want to do BGs, but something that you might have forgotten for a while, this game also has a war mode option. Yes, generally speaking, war mode has not been very useful in these past few years, but we are back in this expansion having some extra world quests given if you have war mode available, and these extra world quests are giving you key shards. There have been already, for example, enough world quests in war mode to give you 1 full coffer key worth of key shards if you had PvP active, if you had war mode active, and you could see these world quests. Also, as usual, all of these world quests don't actually require you to engage in PvP. It's just about kill a bunch of mobs in the same area. So you can also do that if you want to get even more coffer keys for the beginning of this week. But sure, even though the delves are going to be a great system, Mythic 0 is still there. Mythic 0 still exists. Let's say you enjoy grouping with your friends, for example, running with a party more so than trying to play a solo healer with your Dambas, Bran in a delve all day. Let's say you want to do Mythic 0. There is one thing, as a reminder, just in case you want to get ready, in something that wasn't confirmed until basically now. The rotation at the beginning of this season, we are actually going to have a switcheroo where the Mythic Plus dungeons will be put into the Mythic 0 pool of dungeons. Logically, this is in preparation for when the full season releases and these dungeons become Mythic Plus dungeons. Blizzard wants you to have already tried, already gotten used to these dungeons in a tougher situation, so Mythic 0 is the old version of a Mythic Plus 10. This means, in short, that in this reset we will have Grim Battle, Siege of Boralus, the Necrotic Wake, and Mists of Tirna Seed to enter the pool of Mythic 0 dungeons. So places like the Cinderbrew Meadery, the Dark Flame Cleft, the Priory of the Sacred Flame, as well as the Rookery won't be part of Mythic 0 pool starting this week because they are being replaced by the Mythic Plus dungeons, even in Mythic 0. Then we move on to something that actually is perhaps more of a question mark rather than actually a tip. As you remember, perhaps, by the time you get to complete, for example, Ahead of the Curve, you are entitled to a free token, a free tier token. However, what was also available throughout Dragonflight was one quest given to you to defeat the last boss of the raid to get yourself a free crest. In this case, a heroic crest, a maximum of 619 item level crafted piece of gear without having to spend the crest and the Valor Stones to have it. So it was a fully completed, already crafted by an enchanter crest that you could get. Now the question mark for today is that even though the quest has been data mined, already existing in game for what glimmers in shadow, being a quest about defeating the last boss in Anubar Palace, there is actually no news about how would this quest be awarded to you. One of the dangers, one of the worries, particularly for alts, is that this is gated behind the main campaign, the end game campaign storyline. So at the end of the campaign, you get the quest to go and defeat the boss in the raid. This would be a worry, as mentioned, because maybe you have 2, 3, or even 4 characters. In this case, it would mean you have to go on your 2nd, 3rd, and 4th character where you just likely skipped the endgame story campaign, and you would have to go and do all of the 5 different chain quests of the 5 different chapters just to be able to get this quest. That could be an annoying point for getting yourself this crest. Then again, if you're not in that situation of being in a guild running 2, 3, or even 4 splits, knowing you can get to kill the last boss of the raid on multiple different characters, then this one shouldn't really matter. What should matter though, talking about crests, is the suggestion to resist the urge of crafting something in this week. This is something we have gone through even in Dragonflight seasons, to not really spend already your sparks, whatever they are called now, you need to use to craft for a heroic piece of gear. Since in just a week from now you will be able to get the enchanted gilded harbinger crest, which can go all the way up to 636 item level, it is a better idea to just hold on your spark, hold on your crafted materials for that crest, which will just be overall more valuable than this one. Even more so, this is even more so if you don't mythic raid. Even also if you don't have to min-max your item level, and unlikely you will get a 636 item level piece of gear. If you only do heroic raids and you only do mythic plus, then it's an even better reason for you to hold on to your crafted materials for the higher item level crest. That would be the suggestion for the week, to not give in to temptation of getting a higher item level now, a couple of eggs now, when you can get the entire chicken in just a week. To finish, we can finish the tips and suggestions for the week with a handful of QOLs, namely being add-ons, Weakauras for the release of the season, specifically both for the raid as well as Mythic Plus. You know, getting yourself the hang again on the useful stuff for Mythic Plus, like for example the warnings of spells targeting you or which spells are targeting which players, the Weakaura packages for dungeon mechanics and raid mechanics, and the rest of the usual useful tools for both raiding as well as Mythic Plus, even if technically this week we're not getting Mythic Plus, we're getting Mythic 0, but it's still good to start early, to be optimizing your character. So, for today, these were the suggestions right before the release of the season, hoping that some of you have gotten corrected a bit on something they were about to do wrong, like running the wrong delves, ruining their Bountiful Delves for their tier 8 rewards. And with this out of the way, we can now leave each other on this Tuesday. As a reminder, at the beginning of the season, we will also be streaming live on Twitch for everyone who wants to join. Eventually, in a few days after the release, we will also be hopping on our scuffed alts. So we will be needing some slaves to run Mythic Zeros with. I will be happy for anyone to join and carry my, at that point, under-geared characters left behind, my main. And you'll be able to find the links down below, as well as straight up join over on Discord to be notified as well whenever my stream goes live. Now, with these things out of the way, thank you guys of course for watching, together with everyone who is supporting for free by liking and commenting down below, as well as subscribing to the channel itself. Now, with these things out of the way, thank you guys again, see you guys tomorrow, and in the meantime, well, this attempt at fixing my sleep schedule for the release of the season is doubtful at best.